Hello, everyone. Hello, please could you confirm if you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Great. Thanks for the confirmation. Okay. All right. Good morning and welcome to another, you know, training as this takes us to the second week of our second cohort. Okay. So my name is still Oluwatose Anishere. A cloud infrastructure and Microsoft security consultant. That's for those of you that's just joining us for the first time. I am a mentor as well as an instructor for textilers, and my specialty is on Azure and Microsoft 365. But for this learning, I will be your instructor for Azure. Okay, and we have house rules. Basically, we would appreciate if you join the call, you go ahead to mute your mic so that we don't get distracted by the background noise. And if you need to ask a question during the class, kindly use the raise your hand icon to indicate that you want to ask a question or just to get attention. Sometimes I may not see that raise your hand icon. Sometimes, in that situation, please go ahead. You are free to go ahead to unmute your mic and call my attention to ask your question. That's fine by me. You can equally use the chat window, where you could go ahead to put your question, your comment, your feedback, or if you want to contribute to the learning. So that's the house rule. Um, this learning will take us 2 hours. We go ahead to do the learning between the hour of 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. UTC plus one, or should I say West African time. So just 2 hours every Saturday, and we have 8 weeks to complete the learning. So we started the learning last week for Easy 900 course, and we started with module 1. Okay, cloud concept. I think I see someone's hand up. Joseph, you want to ask a question?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead,
Sorry
I can hear
to
you.
bug in, sorry to bug into your conversation. Please, before we start, please, I still cannot view my chat.
I think I lost you there, but the last thing I heard is you're unable to see the chat window. Okay, I'll go back one slide back, and I want to believe you're able to see my screen. Okay, if you're able to see my screen, usually there is a tray, and on that tray you will see different icons that looks like this. Okay, and one of the icon is show your conversation. By the time you click that icon, that's where the arrow is indicating. You should be able to see your chat, and you should be able to, go ahead to chat. Okay, the window is open, and I sometimes see people chat in the meeting chat window. Okay, so I know it is open, there's not restricted, for you to chat. So probably you could try that again, and you should be able to chat. Okay, so back to what I was saying before the question. Here we started the module 1 cloud concept, and the agenda once again, if you're joining us for the first time today. So the agenda is to learn things around the cloud models, cloud benefits and consideration, as well as cloud services. So last week, which was the introduction, we only focused on cloud models, where we defined what is cloud, try to understand what is cloud. We talked about the private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. We also talked about that cloud that is best for our choosing. Okay, where we also compared this different cloud. So right now we'll move on to the cloud benefit and consideration, because that was where we stopped for the learning. We didn't complete our 2 hours last week. So this very week we will do our 2 hours, and the expectation is for us to complete this module one and probably, go ahead to start module two. That's the expectation. Now, I did not drop any class exercise for us last week because we haven't completed the module. But this week, at the end of the course, I'm going to be dropping class exercise, which I would expect you to please participate in. Now, the class exercises is going to be for you to be able to see if you can apply what is being learned in this 2 hour window, if you can answer it. So it's going to be like an assessment for you. Now, for me as your instructor, it will just help me to understand if everyone understands the learning or the area some of us are missing. Now, to set the expectation again for those of us that are joining this training for the first time, the expectation is for beginners. So the focus is basically for beginners. Okay, it's not, and as a trainer, I would try as much as possible to stay within the basics, not to go advanced, because the learning audience is for beginners. Although I understand we have among us those who are familiar, who has basic ideas and all, it will be welcome. No, your contribution would be welcome to have a rich learning experience. However, I am going to maintain basics because of the audience. I wouldn't go too advanced so that I don't confuse us or least anyone get frustrated. So please, I'm going to maintain the flow of basic for this learning. Without wasting much time, let's begin where we stopped. Okay, so we'll continue with cloud benefits and consideration, but I think it will be fair enough to just do a recap. Recap of last week, we talked about cloud computing, and for cloud computing, we got that understanding that it helps us. It's that is the provisioning of services as well as application over the internet. Okay, we get to access our resources, our computing, our compute resources, over the internet. And we said we give the idea that it's more or less like renting, a space in somebody else's environment. This time around, our focus is Microsoft Microsoft, because they are the service provider. We have other service provider which we talked about last week. Now, we equally went further to talk about the different types of cloud. We said we have the private cloud, we have public cloud, we have hybrid, and we mentioned that the private cloud is services that have been offered over the internet and is available to anyone who wants to purchase this service. And public cloud basically is owned by hosting providers, or can I call them cloud service provider, the likes of Microsoft, Amazon, Google. They are hosting provider. Just mentioning a few. Then we went further to talk about private cloud too, and we said the private cloud, consists of that computing resourcing that is used exclusively by users from a particular organization. Okay, usually we said that is owned and hosted by organization, which means it's not available to third party. Although this can be hosted by a third service provider on behalf of the organization. However, it is exclusive and owned just for a particular organization. We gave examples last week. Then we also talked about hybrid, and we said hybrid is the combination of this public cloud and private cloud, and that way it will allow both our data and application to be shared in both environments, whether it's the on-premises environment, which we term to be the public cloud, or the private cloud and the public cloud. So that's the combination. So as we move on, we're going to get clearer understanding, and we'll build on this foundation. So now that we've done a recap, let's look at the cloud benefit and consideration. So at the end of this particular lesson, we should be able to identify the benefit of cloud computing. We should be able to identify the differences between capital expenditure, which we acronym CAPEX, as well as the operational expenditure, which we acronym OPEX. Also, we will be able to describe what we mean by consumption-based model. I'm sure at the beginning of, okay, that was earlier on, but we'll talk about that later, consumption-based model. Okay, let's start with cloud benefits. Okay, what are cloud benefits? Yes, we have some of these things listed on the screen. It's just like saying what are those advantages of cloud computing? Like, what would make you want to host your services on the cloud, or what would make organization want to, host their services on the cloud, or have transition to the cloud. So what we have listed on the screen are some of the benefits of cloud, okay, as a whole. Okay, for instance, high availability. Now, usually this is something that is common, and I believe most organization, they want this high availability. The fact that um, whenever they need their data, it's always available to them as long as they have internet, because cloud is being able to access over the internet. And one thing Microsoft, which since we are learning around Microsoft Azure, one thing Microsoft would do is they would always promise you that SLA of 99.999%, letting you know that your data or your resources that you have hosted is always available at every point in time. Now, they own the physical data center, they manage the data center. Now, your data in which you have hosted in this data center, at any point in time in which you need it, it's made available to you. Now, what Microsoft has gone further to do is they host there's a replication of this your data in different region. Don't worry, when we get to module 2, we will understand this data center and regions better. But what I'm trying to say is, in a layman English, is there's a form of backup such that if one is down, another one is available in form of redundancy, such that it is always available to you. And because this high availability is a great benefit, that way it provides that great user experience with no downtime whatsoever, even if anything goes wrong, even if there's a natural disaster in a particular place, because it has been replicated, it's available for you and services continue. So no downtime. That's why you have that service level agreement, of that purpose. Although there are different service level agreement depending on the product or the services we render, but we will take a look at that more as we move on. Another benefit based on what we have here on the screen is scalability, and of course, scalability here has to do with that increase and decrease. Like I said, I'm going to be as basic as possible for us to understand. So we have two ways for this scalability. So we can actually increase vertically and horizontally. And when I mean vertically, you can have computing capacity being increased. So the likes of adding additional RAM, the likes of adding additional CPU. So that's what we mean by scale up. Okay, instead of horizontal, we're scaling up. So that way we are adding additional so it's just when you have your computer, your laptop, for instance, or your desktop, whichever way, the and your memory. No, you have maybe a particular size. Let's take for instance, you have 4 gig RAM. Now, if you want to expand it, I'm sure you use the words like I'd like to upgrade my RAM. And what you do is you go purchase additional RAM, to add on to what you have, depending on the model or the slots, if it can accommodate and be upgraded up to 8 gig RAM. So it depends, things like that. You're adding additional, but it will require you to go purchase, loose components and include this hardware that you need to, increase. So that's like you upgrading your RAM memory. Now within the cloud, there is such concept as well, where you can add additional. Probably what you've purchased in terms of for configuration is 8 gig, you want to increase to 16 gig. You have that opportunity to scale, okay, to add this additional feature. So you can scale up at any time because you want to add more resources, and you can scale down at any time if you feel, oh, okay, it's not being used, you are underutilizing it. That is possible. Then for horizontal, it's more or less increasing instances of the resources, and I would explain that. I'm sure most of us on this call are familiar with Jumia. I'm just going to use Jumia as an example. Now Jumia is they have, they maintain this e-commerce site where people come in, to make purchases and all, and based on that, possibly they have a particular, instance that they are using that accommodates the traffic. Now, as soon as they announce what's it called, Black Friday, so the expectation is there's usually more traffic on that site, more people trying to, purchase. People like us who love to do the window shopping, even if we may not buy, you know, everyone is on the site, trying to look one or two things, or the other, and that way they can always scale out. What I mean by scale out is they have, you know, um, additional instances that would accommodate, this traffic on their site. Okay, and once the Black Friday is over, you should know that, okay, that way you have less traffic on the site, you can scale back in. So you have that scalability option for cloud. If it were to be what's it called, on premises, what you would probably do is you have to purchase, and if there's no Black Friday, it means you'll be underutilizing it. You have it there, yes, but you underutilize it, and that way you have spent more. But cloud gives you that option of at any point in time you could scale in and scale out. I'm going to talk about elasticity because it's kind of similar to that, but that's the benefit of scalability. Now for global reach, this is basically available, in different region. That's the cloud, it's available in different regions. So that's another good benefit of our cloud computing, the fact that is, globally available in different region. It's another benefit. We have agility as well. Agility has to do with you be able to deploy and configure very quickly. Okay, very quickly you can spin up a VM. Very quickly you can configure your database depending on service. Very quickly you can do other things, and if you require to make changes on them, this you can do very quickly. So you have that benefit as well. Disaster recovery. Disaster recovery has to do with, maybe having that backup service because your data has been replicated in different region. There's a form of geo distribution. We know what geography means, different area, or should I say head. So there's that geo distribution of your data being replicated either in different region or in different country. If anything happens, to a particular region you're maintaining, there is a failover. Okay. And it can even be, we can replicate your data once everything is set to the point where you are. So you have that confidence that your data is safe should in case any disaster whatsoever occur. So that's a great benefit. We have the fault tolerance as well. That's one of the benefit of you know of the cloud. We have elasticity. This elasticity basically is something you can configure and take advantage of auto scaling. Remember I said scalability has to do, yes, you can scale in, scale out and all of that, but the elasticity here would give you that rather than you doing some of these things manually, you it can be auto configured and take advantage of auto scaling so that your application would always have the resources they need at every point in time, always have the resources they need. Then customer latency capabilities too. That's also another great cloud benefit. Here we have predictive cost consideration. You pay for what you need, okay? And if you don't need anything, you don't have to pay. So you're paying based on what you consume, and that's why they refer to Azure that we are going to be looking at as we go on as consumption based model. You pay for what you need, you pay for what you consume. And finally, security. Everyone, when you think of security, what comes to mind is threats. And for cloud, um, Microsoft, I would speak for specifically, has invested so much and ensuring that your data is well secure. So they have different approach as step as to this security. There's so many solutions that Microsoft offers for security. The likes of we have so many security, the likes of you know the defense in depth, for instance, is an approach for security. Microsoft has done that where there are different layers of this security, right from the physical layer down to the data itself. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into security for that. It's not our lane. It's just giving us that idea. There are other solutions, the likes of MFA, the likes of DDoS protection. All of these things are what Microsoft has made available for securing our data. They have their own responsibility as to regards to this security, and they've even provided solution to customers for that they can take advantage of for this security. So this as the cloud benefit. I would say some of the cloud benefits you know that we have based on what is listed on the screen. We have more, more like accessibility, the ability for you to be able to access from anywhere at any time as long as you have internet. And I would like to mention, in case you're unable to access it because of internet, now that is not a fault of any of the service provider. That's on you, because you have that internet. You are the one that are required to have internet to access your resources or data at any point in time. Now that we've understood some of these benefits, let's talk about Apex and OPEX. When we say Apex, because our cloud is consumption based, that is, you get to pay for what you use. That way, it's this consumption based model as is what's brought about the benefit of OPEX, and I will explain. So let's try to understand the capital expenditure versus the operational expenditure. Now, for capital expenditure, basically, just like what we have listed here on the screen, it has to do with that upfront spending where you have to invest your money or spend your money on physical infrastructure. You have to, buy all of these what's it called, equipment or resources that you need to build your infrastructure. Remember I said what's it called, private cloud, usually organization gets to set that up. So you have to use your money to set up your own data center. You have to buy all the data center resources. You have to buy, racks. You have to buy blade. Sorry, I'm calling it blade. We refer to it. They're physical servers, so we refer to physical servers as blades. Okay, you have to buy your power distribution units. You have to buy UPS. You have to buy all those network devices that are important, like switches, like firewall, like routers. You have to, spend your money on getting those things. Uh, uh, they're part of the data center component. You have to get, your storage, your system controllers. You have to even get generator such that you have a power backup in case light goes on. There is another power supply that you can fill over. You have to get, different console. If possible, you still have to get, physical security people who helps you guide the data center and all. So you're spending much more money, and the cost for capex actually reduces over time. And I will explain what I mean by that. Imagine if you've purchased a particular server with a particular configuration, for instance, and as time goes on, probably your operation increases, or the activity that you get to do increases. What it means is you have to go purchase either another. Trust me, it's not funny to get a server, it's expensive. So you have to go either get something bigger so that it can accommodate your workload, or you have to, find a way to manage. So it's really expensive, and it reduces over time. Imagine at the point with the kind of server you got is, let's take for instance, server 2013. Now, over time, before you know it, currently we even have server 2019. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So over time, that would no longer be this thing for you. You have to go purchase the, maybe the new or latest based on the forest functional level, and it's just more expensive, to maintain. And operational expenditure, on the other hand, it's as simple as pay as you go. You're paying for what you are using, you're paying for what you need, you are paying for that service that you are utilizing at the moment. So you get deducted, or you're being billed for that service you are using. Although yes, this can be immediate, but you are spending for what on what you use, not a situation whereby you're not using it. And of course, because for capex you would have purchased it already, so whether you use it or not, whether you utilize it or not, you have bought it already. But for operational expenditure, um basically it's what you need as at that time. If you need more, of course you pay more for what you need. If you don't need them again, and you have the opportunity maybe to scale in or scale down, you would only pay for those things you are using at the moment. So it's really a great benefit. And this is just the difference between capex and opex. So that's what how I can explain it so far. So in essence, I'm just saying for our opex, there is no upfront cost. You're not paying ahead. It's what you use, you pay for it. Okay, if you don't need it, you don't pay for it. Okay, you're spending on services as needed, just like how it's stated here on the screen. And that's about capex and opex. Now, I know I've mentioned cloud-based while I was talking on the previous slide. Again, this cloud-based model, it's just most, in fact, if not all the cloud service providers, they get to operate on cloud-based model, whereby their end users pay only for the resources that they use. That's the cloud-based model. The likes of, when I say cloud service provider, the likes of Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they are the one that operates this cloud-based model. Of course, there are other cloud service provider. I'm just mentioning the names of the three giants. Okay, then that way it also has its own benefit because whatever you get to use is what you pay for. With consumption-based model, there is no need for upfront costs. So it's just like saying your cloud-based model, you're doing more of the operational expenditure, which is OPEX, rather than capital expenditure. I don't know if you're getting me because you don't have to spend upfront. There's no need to maybe purchase or manage, any costly infrastructure that you will not fully utilize. You might probably be underutilizing it. You don't have to pay for any additional resources if they are not needed anymore. So it's basically, if you look at the consumption-based model, basically it's just like we describing the operational expenditure that we talked about in the previous slide. And the benefit here is there's a better cost prediction. You're able to understand, okay, how much I would be spending on a particular resource. Let's say it's a compute resource, for instance. You'll be able to tell, okay, how much you would likely spend on this compute resource. And prices for individual resources and services are usually provided. And again, I'm sorry, I have to stress that the billing is based on what you use. Okay, so how what you've used and all, that's what the billing is on, and you have that ability to stop paying for resources that you no longer need. So let's say you've scaled up scale out to a particular instance and all, then because you have the ability to scale back in, you are only going to pay for that actual usage or that instance that you have. So it's really a great benefit, and that's why you will notice most organizations now are taking advantage of the cloud, and most are transitioning and migrating to this cloud. So let's move on. I don't know if we have any question, please, before we move on to cloud service. Any questions so far? I think I'll just like to pause there in case we have question. If there are no question, of course. Okay, I think I see hands up. Please go ahead. I'll take the question before I move on. Quickly, go ahead. Okay, I thought I see someone's hands up. Okay, that's fine. Let's move on. Let's move on to cloud services. Now, for cloud services, this is basically um, the objective here is we're going to be describing the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. We'll identify the service type based on use case. We'll go ahead to describe, the shared responsibility model. And finally, we'll describe what is serverless computing. So that's what we are going to do in this particular lesson. So when it comes to cloud, I would like us to know we have, just the way we said, we have three types of cloud: the public, private, and hybrid. We have different, majorly, we have three types of service offering, or I can call it deployment model. So we have the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Those are the offering. Why I'm saying majorly three is because these are the common one. We have other services. We have other service offering. Okay, but for this learning, for this basic, or should I say fundamental, we're going to maintain this three service offering: the infrastructure as a service, the platform as a service, and the software as a service. And as you move on, in learning and all of it, you will hear about other services like identity as a service, other services like function as a service, other services like container as a service, and all. But our focus here for this learning, especially this AZ900, we are going to just look at these three service offering: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Now, what is EAS? I shared a video with us last week. I don't know how many of us had the opportunity to watch the video. It was a really short video, just 6 minutes, but I don't know if anyone had the opportunity. If you had the opportunity to watch it, of course, these things were mentioned and they were, explicit in, the video. If you had not watched it, we still have the link in the chat window, or should I say in our channel, where you can make reference to the video. So infrastructure as a service, this is an instance of computing infrastructure. Basically is being provisioned and managed over the internet. So what I'm saying is that the infrastructure as a service will enable you to quickly scale resources to meet demand and only pay for what you use. Okay, so in essence, I'm saying the infrastructure as a service is more or less the one that is closest to managing these physical servers. Our cloud providers, please permit me at every point in time, I may have to mention Microsoft or Microsoft Azure, depending on the context I will use. So, but then in a general term, the cloud providers, which we know them already based on the examples I've given over time, we usually are the ones who keep the hardware up to date, and they are the one that maintain you know all the maintenance, provisioning, and all of these things. But when it comes to the operating system maintenance, the network configuration, and all of these things, take for instance, you want to build a particular compute resource, like example of compute resource is a virtual machine. Okay, now a virtual machine is something that you can quickly provision. And remember the benefit of cloud, which is say agility. You can quickly provision this virtual machine, and it's an example of EAS, infrastructure as a service, because you can quickly deploy that. Now, each of the resource is offered, like a separate environment, or should I say, a separate service component. You are What you're doing is you rent this resource as long as you need it. That's the idea of cloud in the first place. I don't know if you're getting it. You rent the resource as long as you need it. And EAS basically is flexible because you can provision this, not just VM that I mentioned, there are other examples. You can provision the likes of storage. That's an example of infrastructure as a service. You can provision the likes of firewall. You can have VPN, all of these things built into solution. That's why you see it in the diagram on the screen here: servers and storage, networking, security. They're all this, as well as this thing, they're all EAS. You are responsible for configuring and managing those components that we talked about. So I'm still going to give us an overview where you would see the difference between EAS, PaaS, and SaaS. But that's an example. And maybe a common example that I can give to us is, let's imagine we have you know we have an organization, and rather than going ahead to buy these physical servers that I talked about when I was explaining capex, you can just um since cloud is a subscription consumption based model, you can subscribe to the cloud, Azure for instance, and then the Azure, what you will do is you can rent a resource, which is you can quickly configure a VM, spin up a VM that would you intend to use for whatever purpose you're spinning that VM for. So that's just giving us an idea. And when you're spinning up the VM, which I would still do a demonstration for us, I think when we go to module 2, you would see you will be able to purchase, you'll be able to determine the operating system you want. You'll be able to determine the configuration in terms of the disk size. You will be able to manage some of these things on your own, and that's what infrastructure as a service is. Now, the target audience of infrastructure are usually system admins, system admins, IT admins, they are the one, that does this infrastructure as a service. They are the basically the ones that get to use the infrastructure as a service more. An example of this service offering, you can get it from Azure. I'm just going to maintain Azure. I won't talk about other products here, so that we can just be guided. Now let's move on. We said we equally another service offering is PaaS, platform as a service. Platform as a service. Now for this, basically it gives us that development environment, and should I say development and deployment environment, because with this particular pass offering you can build, you can deploy all those cloud-based apps to your sophisticated app, or all those applications that your organization can make use of. So with this, what happens is the cloud service provider gets to manage the likes of virtual machines, network resources, and all. But you will be the one to use that environment to host your application. So what you are basically doing is you are deploying your application into the managed hosting environment. I'll give you an example. We have the likes of just like I gave example for EAS, and I said we have VMs, we have storage. So another example for PaaS basically is the likes of app service. So what I was saying is the hosting provider would have managed this years, and you will be the one to come and deploy your application on this managed hosting environment already. So basically is an environment where you can do your test, your deployment, your building specifically around applications, software application. You don't have to worry yourself about managing any underlying infrastructure. You don't have to bother about the servers. I mean, those days, I don't know if we're familiar when I mean those days, like many years ago, before the this shift of cloud and all of it. If as a programmer or a developer and all, if you want to host, you have to get ready all your environments, your servers that you'll be using, no your database and all of it. But right now with cloud, you don't have to worry yourself about that. You don't have to, what you worry about is deploying your own application, so that way you're able to purchase these resources from the cloud service provider and just pay, since it's a consumption based model, you use the pay as you go basis, and you have all of these things secured over the internet. Okay, so um what is written on the screen, the past remove that idea of you having to manage the underlying infrastructure, or you having to manage maybe this middleware or anything around the infrastructure of the services. You don't bother your head about that. All the thing you have to worry about, or what you get to manage, is your application and service that you have developed. Okay, that's what you use. And the target audience for PaaS is basically programmers, developers. They're the one that uses PaaS more. And an example of that is Azure too. With Azure provides this service offering of platform as a service. So the third offering here, based on our focus, is software as a service. And software as a service basically, I would say is targeted towards end user, because with this it will allow you to connect and use those cloud-based apps over the internet. Okay, and the cloud service provider would be the one to manage all the aspect of the application environment, all the aspect of the infrastructure environment, and all. Then all you need is just your own data um, being utilized on the platform. A typical example of that is the likes of Microsoft 365, 365, Dynamics CRM. They are typical example of SaaS, and those who use it more, I'll just say end users. Okay, basically anyone can be an end user. There's no particular stereotype to that. I'll just say end users, because with end users they'll be able to provide different software solution, like when it comes to email, using calendar, even our office apps, you know um all these are Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all. Refer to them as, like 365 app for enterprise, where I'm not going to go deep into it, just to give us an idea. Or should I call it office application suite? Let me just use that word. I'm sure we would understand that better. So those kind of things, you're able to just connect to the service over the internet. Usually you can get the web browser, it's fine. Then you are able to enjoy and use this service. Now, software as a service allows your organization to quickly get up and running with all of the apps at a very minimal upfront cost. Okay, so it's really a great benefits for us. So these are the major service offerings that we have, and let's compare the three of them: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Again, don't forget, this we refer to them as cloud service offerings, or you can call them cloud service model. Okay, or depending on the documentation you're reading, you could see it as cloud service model. Now, when we say types of cloud, you can call them deployment model. You have the public, private, and hybrid. Those are deployment models. Okay, so depending on documentation that you're trying to read to further understand, or just to build more, you would see those terminology. Now let's compare again. Now, when it comes to infrastructure as a service, for instance, this is the most flexible, and the reason is because it gives you that form of control over your hardware, that you want to run your application. So instead of buying the hardware, IaaS means rent it. You're not buying, you're renting it. So that's the unique word for that, for us to understand. So instead of, okay, buy your hardware, IaaS will say no, rent it. Okay, and the advantage is you do not require any upfront cost, no capital expenditure, and it's flexible. It brings about, when we're talking about the cloud benefits, agility. Yes, yes, has that, because you are able to quickly provision whenever you need it, as well as the provision if you don't need it. And in terms of management, we are still going to look at what shared responsibility we have. This shared responsibility models that applies, and you're able to manage and maintain the cloud infrastructure too, even as a customer. Of course, generally they are all consumption based model, and you get that benefit. I think the key word for infrastructure as a service is that flexibility. Now, for platform as a service, now, like I said, this is focused, the developers, I mean, get to use this offering more, okay, and it has its own advantage to no capital expenditure. Basically, cloud, no capital expenditure. It equally has agility too, and the reason why it has that is you do not need to configure servers for running your application, okay, and even though there may be some limitation to the cloud platform on how it affects, how this your application run, this basically is still best suited for your workload, and in terms of it's a consumption based everything. ES, PaaS, and SaaS, they're all consumption based, and you get that benefit of, okay, you can focus on application development only, and you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. You can work with distributed team, just to have these services much more easier. It has a disadvantage. I'm sure you heard me when I said, although it has limitation, that limitation is an advantage, a disadvantage basically, because the limitation basically can affect how your application run. So, but nevertheless, that's in comparison to EAS. And finally, we have SaaS. SaaS here is centrally hosted and managed for you and users in your environment. So with this, like we've given our example, Microsoft 365, 365, Dynamics CRM and all, it has same advantage as the rest, which is no capex. Users do not have to pay upfront, pay as you go pricing model, and of course the agility to your users within your environment organization can quickly access any latest software and use them quickly. And in terms of skills, there is no deep technical skills required to maybe deploy or use or take advantage of the benefits of what's it called, this cloud. Then you don't, there is flexibility too, where you can access the same application data from anywhere. You can access it from anywhere on any device. It also has the limitation, and the limitation is based on the software application that might affect basically how your users work and all. So these are just the different, offerings of EAS, PaaS, and SaaS. Now let's take a look at this shared responsibility model I am talking about. The comparison. Our on-premises basically is the private cloud, hosted for just your organization, and other users does not have to use that. Now, based on the color code, you have the green for organizations are the ones that would manage that. So if I'm saying you, I'm referring to you as a user or the organization. So either way, then the cloud provider, which is Microsoft in that instance, the color code is blue. So for private cloud, remember I said you manage that on your own. Okay, organization are the one that hosts this and they get to manage it, which means from storage down to data and access, our organization or users are responsible for managing all of those resources in our environment. Now, infrastructure as a service. For this, the cloud service provider, there's a shared responsibility. The cloud service provider, which is Microsoft in this instance, gets to manage the storage, the networking, the compute. Why you as an organization, that's why I mentioned the word flexible. You have that flexibility, to manage some of these cloud services, because you have that control as well over some of these things. So when it comes to virtual machine, operating system, runtime application, the data and access, you manage that. You have control over that. So although instead of buying outrightly and all, you rent it, but then you have control over that. Now for platform as a service, your cloud service provider manages everything, and that's why one of the advantage of this is you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. You remember we said that, we said just bring in your code, deploy your code, you can test it, you can build it, but bring in your code. And that's why we said it's basically for these application developers, programmers, and all of them. So here they bring in their application, and so it is your application and data and access that you get to manage. In terms of, so Microsoft is doing a whole lot of the management, while you worry less about the this infrastructure, and just concentrate on your code. Now software as a service, um, this is ready-made, if I can use that word. Microsoft gets to take care of most of this thing. You're just bringing in that data that you want to, provision, and you are able to access on it. And that's why the likes of Microsoft 365 is an example. So, for instance, Microsoft 365, we have services like Exchange, SharePoint, Teams. You don't get to build Teams from the start. You are only using it. You don't get to build your Exchange. You're using, the Exchange services. You're using all those. You getting to use the mailbox. You're using the all these exchange services. I'm not going to go deep into M365, so I'll, as much as possible, stay in context and stay within. But I'm just trying to give us that idea that you are not going to be doing. You're just utilizing, to get work going, to have that, productive environment. That's what software as a service is. Now, before I go into serverless computing, I'm going to bring up something from the internet that gives us a clearer view. It's called PISA as a service model. Just to drive home further what this shared responsibility is. It's just me giving us a scenario that we can relate to it, and it makes no sense to us. So, bring image of PISA as a service. Oh, sorry, this the service model, of course, is just giving us an idea about this shared responsibility model. It's not like, okay, there is something called pizza as a service. So, just to, clarify to us. Um, 1 minute, please. I'm trying to bring that up. Okay, great. This is what I need. Please, I hope we're able to, see my screen clearly. Remember when we were talking about the shared responsibility model, okay? And I said you take care of everything, you manage everything. There's capital expenditure because you have upfront costs. You have to buy all of these things with your money. So that's the idea with this pizza. You want to make pizza at home, you would get everything you need, from the ingredient to down to the things that you will use in making it, down to where you will set your table. You are in charge. You purchase everything, you set everything in place, you manage everything, you maintain everything. That's the idea of the traditional on premises, which I'll call private cloud. Okay, organization will buy it. So in this instance, is you would buy your cheese, your toppings, if you're the type that want to put, pepperoni, or you want to make it chicken. All our pizza lovers, you will get all of these things from scratch, to all the ingredients, and make it from scratch till the point where you have to prepare it, put it on the table, do the dressing and all. Then infrastructure as a service, like I mentioned when I was giving us that shared responsibility model, that I said, yes, it gives you control over the hardware, but there's the things Microsoft will do, and there's some things you would do. So when it comes to the cheese, topping, tomato, pizza dough, this will be supplied to you. Okay, you really don't have to go out and get that. It will be supplied to you, but then you would make it. I don't know if we have, I think it will be mostly the ladies. For those of us who do small chops all the time, that the small chop, you can just get that frozen shaped, what's it called, or these small chops, rather than trying to mix the flour from the beginning. And no, you can just get some of these things in the store. What you just do when you get home is to fry it, because they've cut it out, they've shaped it. You have your sausage, you have your what are those things that you used to make in your small chops again? Please don't mind me. I know you know, so you can mention them. You have all of these things in, share your samosa, and all of those things. You already have them. In fact, depending on the store you are getting them, they would have helped you to arrange them so well that you don't even have to do anything additional than getting your oil, depending on the type of oil you want to use, whether it's granite oil or soya oil or vegetable oil or whatever oil or sunflower oil. That's on you. Okay, you do the frying, and if you don't want to fry, you want to bake it, that's on you. However it comes out, it's on you. That's the idea of this, infrastructure as a service. Deliver these things you need, which has been, made out for you. So you be the one to get the fire or oven, or if it's going to be electric gas, get the kind of drink that you want to enjoy with it. Set your table. So you have this control as well, for this to happen. And that's the idea of infrastructure as a service. Now, for platform as a service, most of this thing is done. So for those of us that just pick up our phone and quickly order from, Domino Pizza or Dodo Pizza or Pizza Hut or Debonairs, where we have loads of them out there. Once you order, you tell them, oh, okay, I want this pizza and all. It gets delivered to you. So you're not making anything at home. You are not frying anything. You're not baking anything. You're not doing anything. You just receive this pizza, then set it on your table and enjoy it with a drink that you want. Okay, that's the idea. So you're not doing too many things except for you setting your table, especially if you're expecting a visitor, or you want to enjoy it alone over a movie on Netflix and all. But you would still have to go ahead to set the table and determine to say, I want this kind of drink, to be enjoyed with my pizza. So that's the idea. It's been made, it's been delivered to you. And for software as a service, that's why I said that one is end user. you know Everything is being made for you. So the likes of that is you get to go out. You are not worried about, okay, setting up any table. You are not worried about, okay, going out. It's just walk in to the pizza shop, sit down, and you are served. However you eat it, they come clean the table for you. You don't do that. And also, that's just to give us an idea of these different services. So I'll just go back to the page so that you can paint what I've just described to us with this shared responsibility model. And basically, that's what we have here. And finally, I'll talk about serverless computing. Serverless computing. Now, for this serverless computing, I would say it's similar to PaaS, but not outrightly PaaS. Okay, and I would explain. Our computing model too gives us that room, to provision and manage servers, and it allows this our developer to spend their good time or spend most of their time building the app rather than trying to manage infrastructure. That's what it gives to them. So for serverless computing, it's important because it might be similar to pass, but please just try and follow me and so that you can get it. For serverless computing, it's important to know that servers are the servers are still running they're still running the code, but it comes from the fact that you don't have to worry with infrastructure provisioning or management, because they are usually invisible to this our developer. And the approach of this serverless computing is just to enable our developers to increase their focus on the business logic. That's just business logic can deliver like more value to the business. So in essence, the serverless computing helps the team in our organization to increase their productivity and bring the product out faster. Imagine you're trying to develop an app and all, because you're not focused on all the underlying stuff. It helps you to just focus on that app and you develop it very quickly. So with serverless computing, developers are able to build this application faster by eliminating any need to manage any infrastructure whatsoever. Okay, I know it sounds similar to PaaS, but it is not PaaS. Microsoft have been able to differentiate it. The serverless application when with your service provider, which is Microsoft in this case, will automatically do the provisioning, they automatically do the scaling, they will automatically manage the infrastructure that requires, that is required for you to run your code. They automatically do all of those things. And example of this is we have the likes of Azure Functions, we have the likes of Azure Logic App. There are even more that are not listed here. We have the likes of Azure Event Grid. All of these are basically examples of serverless computing. Now, let me compare it for to us in terms of that major difference between our serverless computing as well as PaaS. Now, the major difference has to do with, should I say scope? Because the serverless computing takes all the past advantage. So it's just like everything you get from platform as a service, serverless computing has it, and even more. I don't know if painting that makes a better sense to us. Everything password as a service offers us, the advantage, and even more you get that, because with serverless there is no you have this, the cost structure is more or less event driven. And what do I mean? You really don't pay fixed monthly fees for the service that you don't use. Okay. And with serverless is more of you micromanaging, or you have this is micromanaged, so that how do I put it now, internal administrative resource can be used for other activities. And should I say the serverless will offer that true auto scaling capability to customers. So it's just that way it gives more effectiveness than even speeding up your deployment as well as software release than the platform as a service. So the idea, or if there's anything you're going to take home today for this serverless computing, is the fact that it does everything platform as a service do, you know, and even more. They are similar, yes. Okay. But serverless is like a step further, doing more than the platform as a service. So that's basically that. I don't know if we have any questions. So like I said, the examples of them, we have the Azure function, where is get to run your services and not the underlying platform. So you create the infrastructure based on events. We have the logic app. Some of these things, I'm not going to do a deep dive because we still have, concurrent modules where we would do a deep dive on all of these different Azure services, right from the services for compute, services for app service, and all. We would take a deep dive on them. So I'm just going to give us like an overview right now to paint idea and the example of this serverless computing. So logic app, for instance, it's to help you to do a form of automation as well as orchestration, where you can integrate apps and all of this thing in your services. So we'll look at that more, but this is the idea of serverless computing. Okay. Any question as we have come to the end of this learning? Any question, please, before we quickly move to module 2?
Yes, please. I have a quick question. Around this Azure Logic apps, how does that compare with the Power Automate?
Okay. So remember, for Power Automate, yes, that's basically what we refer to as Microsoft Flow before. But the Logic Hub is a little bit different. If you remember, for all the Power Automate service, you really don't have to be a programmer in order to use them. Okay, it's as simple as you just trying to build your workflow and all. But the Logic app is not like that. In essence, your Power Automate, or which it used to be Microsoft Flow, is just things that when you activate, it has this pre-selected event, like it's ready made. This is an example of software as a service. If you think of the software as a service model, you are able to understand it. There is no need for code, or you do not require that that coding experience or skills. That's the better word, skills. So it's more or less like doing a drag and drop solution that would allow you to create your workflow in order to automate a repetitive task. That's for Power Automate. So you can quickly, with maybe any out of the box template or any connectors, you can quickly get work going for Power Automate. And again, is example a typical service under the software as a service. Remember the three models that I painted to us, where I said you don't have to do much, you just targeted towards end user. For Logic App, it's a little bit different. You require that programming skills, to be able to put these things together, and that's why it's targeted towards developers. I don't know if you're able to get me, please. So that's not to
Yes, I do.
confuse us. Okay, not to confuse, I just maintain that. But as we go on in the course, we are going to do a deep dive. I'm not sure, I don't want to digress too much by going fully into, Azure Logic Apps. At least we, lose focus on the topic. And I am trying as much as possible not to confuse anyone on this call, really. So but with that idea, you get it. We are going to do a deep dive on Azure Logic Hub. Okay. Any other question, please? If we do not have
Hello,
question, please go ahead.
hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I
Please go
want to
ahead.
ask. Um, does it mean that all the Microsoft solutions are now cloud-based?
Mm, That question, let me help rephrase. Does it mean all Microsoft solutions are now cloud-based? I'm trying to get that, but let me explain this way. Microsoft has their cloud, there's Microsoft Cloud, basically. So all those services that you can utilize on your on premises, we equally have the cloud based. So what I'm saying in essence is we have Microsoft Cloud. And what Microsoft Cloud does is there's this you get to work with Microsoft technologies, and you benefit from combining these different features, like that we've talked about, in that. So the Microsoft cloud technology is, when we talk about the likes of Microsoft 365, talk about Azure, talk about the Power Platform, talk about Dynamics, all of those things, we refer to them as Microsoft Cloud. So when you say, what are the example of Microsoft Cloud? You're mentioning Azure, you're mentioning Dynamics, you're mentioning Microsoft 365. I don't know if you're getting me, please. But then so they still have the services that don't run on the cloud. So you can use, let's say, Office 2019 Professional. It's a Microsoft product. It's not on the cloud. It's not a cloud-based
Okay.
feature. You have Exchange Server. It's a Microsoft feature, right? But it's not cloud-based. You have Active Directory. It's owned by Microsoft. It's a Microsoft product, but it's not cloud-based. So the ones that are cloud-based, we refer to them as Microsoft Cloud. And that's why whenever they are defining any product that is cloud, you will hear a cloud-based this, a cloud-based that, letting you know that it's owned by Microsoft, but it is cloud-based. I don't know if I'm able to answer
Okay.
your question.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, please. So let's move on to module 2. I just provided a link in the meeting chat, and that link, or maybe I'll drop that at the end of the learning. I won't drop that now. So that link is like documentation for everything I'll be training so far. So it's well detailed. It's like you having a note of these things that I'm talking about. So besides you making reference to this recorded video, because it's being recorded and you can, you have access to it anytime, even after the training, there's equally a documentation that you could, flow with, and all everything, and I repeat, everything that I've trained so far is well detailed in that documentation. So more or less like saying you have a note for yourself. So, but I'll drop the link, at the end of the training. Without, wasting much time, we have less than 1 hour. Let's see what we can cover in module 2. So module 2 is about core Azure services. And thanks to the lady who asked the question about cloud, because that's like, a great way to introduce this core Azure services. When I was saying the Microsoft Cloud technology, we split it into basically three offerings: the Microsoft 365, the Azure, as well as the Power Platform or Dynamics, however you want to categorize that. So one of those three broad category is Azure, and we are going to be looking at this Azure in our module 2. So in this module, we have the outline where we would look at the Azure architectural component. In this module we'll be talking about different regions, different availability zone, the subscription, resource groups and all. And we're also going to be talking about the Azure resources based on compute, based on networking, based on storage, as well as databases. So that's what we'll be looking at. It's okay, we might not complete all of this module today, but yes, we would start module 2. Don't forget, it's 8 weeks and we just have 2 hours, per week. So let's start. Core Azure architectural component, and here at the end of this lesson, we should be able to describe the benefit and the usage of all of these things listed there on the screen. We should be able to understand what is regions, what is region pairs, what are availability zones, what are Azure resources, what are resource groups, what are Azure Resource Manager, what are subscription, what are Azure management groups, and all. At the end of this, we should be able to describe them as well as their usage. So we'll start with region. What is a region? Before I talk about region, again, let me take it back to data center, because that would help us to understand greatly. Now, there's something called data center. So we have Azure Data Center. And what that means is it's actually a unique physical building. And this unique physical building is located over the globe, is located in different countries, is located in different regions. And what the data center does is it houses all our data center components. Okay, that's how I can put it. So this Azure data center that I said, it's contains thousands, I don't know how you want to picture it, thousands of physical servers that has its own power, that has all those data center components. And again, yes, it is located over the globe, because Azure, we have, it's in different regions, over 60 regions represented in 140 countries. So in essence, I'll just, to take a mention to say we have the something called global infrastructure. This global infrastructure is made up of two key components. So maybe relating it to us that way, we'll get the picture. Now we have the physical infrastructure as well as the that connective network component. Now it is the physical infrastructure that has physical data centers. And the physical data center, we arrange them in regions. Let me see if I can bring up a whiteboard to help me explain this deeper. Probably will get it faster that way. 1 minute, please. Let me bring up a whiteboard. I don't know if you're following me. In case this whiteboard is going to take time in uploading. Sorry, it's taking a little longer. Okay, I'll just go ahead to describe this to us. 1 minute. I'm trying to. I just want to illustrate it. So please give me a moment. Let me bring up this whiteboard so that I can have, that free pen to illustrate, please. 1 minute. Okay, well, I'm trying to bring that up in case we have anyone that has question and take this moment to, ask you your question, please. I would really love to illustrate this so that we get, a good understanding of what I'm trying to describe. Okay. Sorry, please. Sorry. I don't know why this is taking a little while. Maybe I'll just use the web-based whiteboard. That way, it will be faster. Let me use the web-based because this desktop one is taking a while for me. So permit me to use the web-based version of the whiteboard. All right, great. So let me use this. Okay, so what I was trying to describe is we have something called Azure Global Infrastructure. Take note, Azure Global Infrastructure. Now, this Azure Global Infrastructure is made up of two components. We have the physical infrastructure. Please don't mind my freehand. Um, Physical infrastructure, as well as the connective network components. Now, this physical infrastructure now is now made up of data centers, different data centers. So I'll just write here data centers. Oops. Now, this data center, of course, we have over 160 data center, basically, just like we saw on the slide. That's our physical infrastructure. Now, this data center, Microsoft has now gone ahead to arrange the data centers in regions. I don't know if you're getting me. Yes, we know we have various data center, but it is well arranged in regions. I don't know if you now get that. As I say, Azure offers more global regions than any other cloud providers because they have 60 regions represented in over 140 countries. Okay, so regions. I don't know if we're getting. So what is a region now is the question. Now, a region basically, I would say, is just a set of data center that is being deployed within a latency defined perimeter and is connected through a particular dedicated, regional latency network. Okay, and so when we say Azure region, I'm simply describing, what I have here on the board. This data region, sorry, Azure region is just a set of data center. This set of data center within a latency defined perimeter, and of course, it's being connected through this low latency network. That's what region are. That's why you have on the screen here. I try as much as possible not to just read what we have on the screen, but it's simple enough to just say the regions are made up of one or more data center in close proximity, which was what I was trying to define to us by saying a set of data center, deployed within a latency defined perimeter, trying to say within a close proximity. I believe we got that better now. And of course, this our region provides us with That flexibility, we are able to scale to reduce customer latency, and yes, it preserves data residency within comprehensive compliance. That's just English word, but basically that's how I would describe the region to us. Or I can put it this way, if it will make a clearer sense to us, to say a region is that geographical area on the planet that contains at least one or multiple data centers that is networked together with a low latency network. I don't know if that is much better. No, region, geographical area, on the planet, of course, because it's global, that contains at least one, which means you can have more than one data center that are usually nearby and are networked together with this low latency network. So I think that sounds even much better based on what I've been describing so far. So yeah, I've mentioned to us with our region, we can get to preserve data residency. We can, and what do we mean by data residency? That's that location where our data resides, where our data is located. So we can preserve our data residency. Users can select the region that is closer to them. Okay, whenever you want to, spin up resources and have your data on the cloud, you can get to choose the region that is closer to you. Then it provides that flexibility and scalability. We've mentioned that already. Now let's move on. We have something called region peers. Region peers, and the way region peers work is, the idea is it allows that replication of our resources like storage, our resources like VMs. It's just one of some of the example. Now it allows the replication of these resources across geography, in order to help reduce any likelihood of interruption that may be due to a natural disaster, that may be due to maybe power outage. Anything can happen, can be due to civil unrest. It can be due to, physical network outage as well. Anything that could just disturb the flow. Okay, that's the idea. So when we say region peer now, we are saying the where that region where we can replicate our resources in case there's any interruption. That's the idea. You might want to say, okay, Tosa, are you talking about backup? I think I'll just use the word failover. Failover means in case one is down, the other is up and running and available to serve you. So I will more or less put this to say our services would automatically fail over to the region peer. So we have, just like what the diagram we have on the screen, we have, let's say this is region A, and region A, we have so many regions, right? We have over 60 regions, over 60 regions. And one of the region is North Central US. Now, its region peer is South Central US, such that if anything happens to North Central US, probably there's a natural disaster, or there's civil unrest, or there's power outage, South, our services that we are running on North US will fail over to South Central here. Why? Because there's already a replication of our resources here. Let me bring it down to Nigeria, where we can understand. We have different zone. We have the southwest, we have the north, we have south. Sorry, we have the south, we have the west, we have the east, we have north and as well. So we have different states within the West, the likes of what's it called, Ibadan, Lagos, that's in the West. Now you now have the North, the likes of Kaduna, Kano, those are the North. We have the East, like Port Harcourt, like Enugu and all. So the idea is we can pair, let's say, take for instance Lagos and let's say Abuja. for instance, such that if anything happens within the region of West, so we won't pair Lagos and Ibadan because they are both in the West. If anything happens in the West, both will be down. So that will not be the pairing. The pairing will be, let's say, Lagos and Abuja, for instance. Lagos is in the West, Abuja is in the North side. Just trying to give you an idea, or to paint a scenario rather, such that in case Lagos is down, probably due to civil unrest, or probably due to natural disaster, or maybe power outage, or any reason whatsoever, the data center in Lagos is down. There's Abuja that is appeared, and our resources are being replicated to Abuja. Abuja would be our failover. Would be that region would fail over to, such that it's up and running to serve our customer. I don't know if that makes a paints a clearer picture to us. So that's how Microsoft has designed this region pair. They've paired it with place whereby replication, as there's a replication of our resources across the geography, just to reduce the likelihood of interruption. And that's why Microsoft will solely promise you that 99.9% availability in terms of service level agreement, because these are the underlying process that are in place. There would be an automatic failover in case a particular region is down, the peer would take up. I don't know if you understand. So that's about this region peer. And based on the example we have, if your resources is within the West US2, and anything happens within West US2, you have the West Central US up and running, that it fails over to. Let me bring it down. In case something happened within India South, okay, we have the India Central up and running, to as the failover. The only thing is, we don't have data center in Nigeria. Microsoft does not have data center in Nigeria, but there are data center in Africa that we can leverage. So we would be seeing some of these data centers. So, and okay, there's something here on the screens that says it helps to prioritize the region recovery in the event of outage. I think I've talked about that. And updates are rolled out sequentially to minimize downtime. So it's just the region pair, both regions, their updates, their everything. So I think your takeaway from this in summary is just to say the region pair is available for geo redundancy. Okay, if one is down, the other is up to serve as failover. That's the take home. And next year is we have availability options. Availability option. Now, what are availability options? Okay, I hope the previous slide is clear to us, please. Okay, all right, so let's talk about availability options. For this one, there's something called availability zones. Okay, that way I'll be able to explain these availability options to us. For availability zone, they're just that physical separate data center, usually within the Azure region. And each of these physical zone, is made up of one or more data center equipment. I'll take that again so that you can get it clearly. I'm trying to go somewhere so that you understand what I'm doing, what I'm explaining. Availability zone is a physical data center and is usually within an Azure region. We said we have more than 60 regions. So an availability zone is within the Azure region. Each of the availability zone now, just like this image we have here, is made up of more than one data center. And the idea of it is you have all these, physical data components like the cooling, the networking, the independent power, and all. Everything we have this together. So the way availability zone works is if one zone is down, the other one will continue working. So therefore, the availability zone are usually connected through, this high speed of fiber optic network, basically. Okay, so if if you spin up a single VM, that's our compute service. We just have that maybe in a particular region or a particular zone. Now, availability sets is more or less available in terms of failure. I'm trying to be as basic so that we can understand, and I hope you all are following and getting that with me. So that availability set contains one or more data center. A single VM can be in a particular data center. Our availability set has more than one data center, which means in a particular data center we have the VM. Because we have availability zone, that VM will be replicated in this different data center, so that if a particular zone is down, the other one is available. Although it's not all regions that have availability sets, it's some of the regions that have availability sets. And the region that usually supports, availability zone, the region that supports availability zone usually have that separate zones, just to ensure resilience. And so in region one, you could have an availability zone within region one. You could have availability zone within region two. Sometimes, depending on the region, you may not have. So the idea of this availability zone that I'm trying to explain is that if a particular zone goes down for whatsoever reason, the applications, the data from the rest of the other zone is available. Okay, so that's the idea of this. It's just that separation to help protect our application and to protect our data from any particular data center failure. That's the idea. And again, I'm stressing it to say that's the main reason why Azure is offering, that 99.99 percent uptime SLA to us based on this availability. I don't know if you have any question on this so far, because I know this might be a little bit complex, as we move on, because we'll be dwelling on, some of these things as we move on. Any question, please? Okay, I'll just take that as it's clear and we all understand. Okay, I think Joseph hands is up. Joseph, please go ahead. Is it Joseph or Chidera? I don't know. I think it's Joseph and Chidera. Please go on. If you can hear me, please go on to ask. I'm particularly saying any question here because I know this place could be a little bit confusing to some of us that do not have that IT background. Any question, please? Yes, I can. Faintly, yes. Okay, you can always put the question in the chat. I think some people, someone is saying, I can't see your screen. I think you are not sharing. Okay, but some other people are able to share. So for the person that is unable to see my screen, please could you, sign out, like end the call and join back again. You should be able to see. Now, another person was talking about region. We have region in Africa, of course, South Africa. Yes, Microsoft have their data center in that region. So yes, we do have. Okay, for those of you raising your hand, I'm not hearing you, so I'll just move on. You can put it in the meeting chat. Okay, and here is availability zone, which I think I have talked about, but I'll go over it again so that we can get the picture. Availability zone, again, is a unique physical location. Okay, and that physical location is within the Azure region. So if we have region like, let's say, how will I put it? We can have different countries can be within a region, or we can assume a country to be a region. So this data center would be in, different location within that region. Let's take, for example, now US. US is big, right? That's a country on its own. We can liken it to now within US we have the West US, East US, and we term each of that as a region. Okay. Now within that South US, for instance, we can have more than one data center located at different physical building. Let me bring it back to Nigeria. Maybe we can relate with Nigeria better. We have the north, south, west, and east. All of this within Nigeria. And then the west side, we have, like Lagos. We have Oyo State, Ibadan. We have Ogun State, Abeokuta. We can decide, okay, we have one data center in the physical building in Lagos. We would have another data center in a physical building in Abeokuta. We could have another center in a physical building in Ibadan. I want to believe it's not just Nigerians we have on the call. So at every point in time, when I use Lagos, Nigeria, a little bit for us to relate, I would go ahead to use other regions too. So please permit me to do that intermittently, but still using the Nigeria to give us an explanation for us to relate with and understand. Now, these are just different, zones, so to say. So in that our region, which is Nigeria as a country, we can now have availability zone, okay, within there, such that we have one or more data center that are in physical unique location. And the idea of this is so that if for any reason, if one maybe a zone goes down, okay, another one is up and running for us. And that's why you can see that illustrated in this picture. Availability zone 1, availability zone 2, availability zone 3, they're all in the same region. And the idea is they are all connected together through a private fiber optic network. That's this availability zone, trying to explain to you all over again. Okay, let's move on. We have Azure resources. Azure resources. Now, what is Azure resources? Now, these resources basically they are usually instance of an Azure resource. So the likes of Azure Virtual Machine is a resource. Um, App services, that's a resource. Storage account, those things that we have here on the screen, they are all unique, different resources. SQL database, function app, all of these, we liken them and we call them Azure resources or services. So in essence, I'm saying our Azure resources is an instance of Azure services. So when we say resources, we are basically talking about these services within Azure. I don't know if that makes sense to us. So if we say, okay, we are trying to create a resource, what kind of resource? It could be any the compute resource. And under the compute resource, we have VM. So what we are saying is we are creating an instance of a service. So whenever you do that, you're creating resources. And of course, we have over hundreds of Azure resources. I think something I can show us um, on the slide. Let me browse that. Azure resources. Uh, Azure resources. That's for you to have that. Um, Not this. I wanted to list to us, all the compute resources so far. Okay, so we can see um, some of that in here, but this is not the view I want. Let me do portal.azure.com. Okay, I just want to give let you see what these resources have. So for you to be able to get resources, of course, you need to log into the portal.com. And this portal is something I said we are going to spin up maybe next week. Since our time, we have just about 15 minutes left, we will take our time, to spin that because we need to work in the environment, the Azure portal. So here, let me go to all services. These are all the services. So we have the compute resource, we have networking resource, we have storage resource, web resources, mobile container database, analytics, we have blockchain, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning, we have Internet of Things, we have mixed reality, we have integration, we have identity, security, DevOps, migrate, monitor, management and governance, ensure, and so many others. Now, each of these are just based on category. If I go ahead to click on compute, you will see all the different services under compute. So that was what I was saying, that our resource basically is an instance of the Azure services, you know, in here. So if I create a VM, that is a VM service. Okay, we can liken it to a resource, and that's I believe we are following. So that's what resource is. Now we have resource group. What is a resource group? Now resource group, I would say, is that container that houses our related resources. A container that houses our resources. Okay, in the sense that for resource, I can decide, okay, I can have a resource group in a particular region, and this resource group will house different resources. Like let me begin. I can decide, okay, I have one of these Azure service, which is a resource virtual machine. I have maybe a one of the networking. So it's like virtual network, or load balancer and all. Each of these services, which we term resources, I can have a particular resource group to house them, and that's why I'm saying it's a container that holds related resources for an Azure solution. And the resource group can include those resources that one wants to be able to manage in a group. You can decide if the resources is belonging to a particular you know group based on what you make most out of it. So if we take a look, let me drop this. You may not be able to access it. Don't worry, when we spin up our sign up or subscribe to our Azure portal next week, I'm sure you would have ability to navigate through the environment. So yeah, that's basically what this resource group are. And of course, our resource group, it's let me see another simpler word I can give to us. Okay, I think okay, another simpler word is, let's say, a resource group is that logical grouping. I think that makes more sense. A logical grouping where we can house all our different resources that we have. That's makes another sense too. So with Azure Resource Group, we can it's usually exists we can have our resource group in different region. Okay, we can have it in different region, and we can application can utilize this multiple resource group basically. So that's what it is. I'm trying not to you know um confuse us a bit. Like I promised us at the beginning of the training, I said I was going to be as basic as possible because of the audience we have on this call. Okay, but I believe that's simple enough for us to understand what this resource group is. You know what a resource is. We said is an instance of an Azure service. And now we are now saying a resource group houses all of these resources. And that's why we have here that resources can exist only in one resource group. So that's the idea. And of course, these resources can be moved um, to different resource group, and our resource group can reside in different regions. So that's basically about this resource group. Next here, is the Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager. And what is Azure Resource Manager? It's actually that deployment and management of services for Azure. That's what resource management is, or resource manager is. It provides us with a form of a management layer, which basically would enable us to be able to, create these resources I just described to us. We'll be able to update those resources. We'll be able to, if we need to delete them, we can delete the resources in our Azure account. So that's what a resource manager is. And with our resource manager, we can manage our infrastructure through a declarative template, which we'll talk about. So instead of saying we want to use a script, we can have a form of declarative template to deploy our resources. We can also use this Azure Resource Manager to deploy and manage, as well as even, monitor all the resources for our solution as a group. So instead of trying to manage the resource individually to say, okay, I have Azure VM, or I have Azure database, or I have a virtual network and all, because they are within the same resource group, which is just a container that houses all our resources. We can actually, manage and monitor uh, our resources as a group. For our solution as a group. Then we can even, through this Azure Resource Manager, we can use it to redeploy our solution through a particular development life cycle. We can even apply the likes of RBAC, which in the course of this learning, we will talk about RBAC, which is role-based access control. Some of us must have heard about it before, and some we haven't. Don't worry, we are still going to, get there and talk about each of these things. But what I would like you to know and take home today is the fact that we have a resource manager that helps in terms of deployment. Basically, we are able to, update and manage and, delete. It helps us in delete all of those resources. So this basically has features. The Azure Source Manager has features like control, features like locks, features like tag. The idea of all of the management feature is just to help us secure and organize our resources after we have gone ahead to deploy them. That's what it does. So the way the Azure Resource Manager will work is it will in a way send a request to the Azure service, which usually takes the requested action. Now, because all of the requests are handled through the same API, you would see the same type of result. That is, you will get the same type of result. And we can actually do this in different tools. So what we have on the screen here are just different tools. We have Azure Portal, we have Azure PowerShell, we have Azure CLI. We are still going to take a look at all of these things. Don't worry. I believe we'll talk about it in subsequent slide or module. We have the REST client. These are just different tools that we have here. Now, the Azure Resource Manager helps us, to handle all of these Azure requests. Now, all these capabilities that are available in the portal, in the Azure portal, are equally available through PowerShell, are equally available through Azure CLI, are equally available through the REST APIs or any client SDKs that you may want to talk about. So these are just different tools. It doesn't matter the tool you use, you will achieve, the same results. If I decide I want to use the Azure portal to spin up a VM, or I want to use PowerShell to spin up a VM, or I just say like, I don't know if you're getting me. They're just different tools that we can use. Okay. But then the Azure Resource Manager does this deployment. So it's more of a management service for Azure. If you look at what we have here on the screen, it says it provides that management layer that enables you to create, to update, and delete resources in your subscription. And basically, that is what this Azure Resource Manager does. We can use it to deploy resources that are using maybe infrastructure as a code, something like that. We can use this Azure Manager to spin up things like maybe a resource, whatever resource it is, a resource group, because it will include all of that, the resource provider, the resource manager template, because sometimes it uses a template that you can use to define how your resources should be deployed to groups, or how your resources should be deployed to a particular subscription or tenant. It uses that declarative syntax. I'm talking about our Azure Manager now. It does all of that. So when we are using this Azure Resource Manager, that these are things that it helps us to do. So from time to time, when I talk about Azure Resource Manager, you may hear the words like resource. We know what the resource is right now. We know it's an instance of an Azure service. We hear things like Azure Resource Group. Right now, we know what resource group is. We know it's a container that group together our related resources. A container that houses all our resources in our tenant. Now we know what a resource provider. I don't think I mentioned that, but let me just mention it. It's that individual service within Azure where we can create resource in. So for instance, Microsoft Storage is a resource provider. Microsoft Compute is a resource provider. Then you will hear things like resource manager template. I've talked about that. That's where we'll be using things like JSON script and all. Then declarative syntax. All of these things that I just mentioned are just more of terminology that you will hear from time to time when talking about this Azure Resource Manager. So that's about that. And finally, Azure Subscription. Think I would stop here for now. I'll talk about Azure Subscription and we'll end it with that. What is Azure Subscription? Now, we have said so far so good that Azure is a consumption-based model. We have said, what else did we say? We said it's cloud-based, consumption-based, and all of this. So it's actually, you need Azure subscription to be able to utilize these Azure services. So what I'm saying is the Azure subscription is what will provide you with that authentication and authorization access to be able to use the Azure product and services, wherein with the subscription is what you'll be able to leverage on to spin up resources or to provide resources. So in a way, I can say the Azure subscription is that logical unit of our Azure service that is usually linked to an Azure account. Okay, so it's just like when we say subscription, is signing up to use. So there's an agreement between you and Microsoft to be able to utilize these services for a particular period and all of it. So with this subscription, it will give you that access to use the different services. With the subscription, you will be able to spin up a VM. With the subscription, you'll be able to spin up a database. With subscription, you'll be able to create resources, you'll be able to manage resources, you'll be able to do updates, you'll be able to delete. A resource is what enables you to do that. And there are usually two types of subscription boundary that you can use, just like what we have listed on the screen. We have the billing boundary and we have the access control boundary. The billing boundary usually will determine how your Azure account is built for using Azure. So you can always create multiple subscription for different billing type. Okay, we can have that in place, and we have the access control boundary. That way you'll be able to apply access management policy at a subscription level. And what do I mean by that? You can create maybe separate subscription for different organizational structure. For example, we can say within a business we have different departments basically, and this different department want to be able to apply a distinct Azure subscription policy on them. We want to be able to manage, per department in our organization. So that's like access control boundary. I don't know if you're getting me, please. So those are just the, two subscription boundaries we have. Let me give us something we can relate with, our DSTV. Before you can enjoy the DSTV service, you need to subscribe to it. Okay. And when you subscribe to it, you go ahead to have, different bouquets, should I call it plan. The same thing, before you can utilize Azure, you need to subscribe. Let me use that word. Or should I say sign up? Okay. Now, when you sign up, you are going to get to be able to perform some of these things we talked about in terms of creating or deploying or managing and all of it. So you get access to the Azure services. Okay, so that's but I don't know if we have any question as we have come to the end of this training. We are exactly on time. So if you don't mind, we can take just 5 minutes to go ahead to ask our question or make contribution. If not, we would call it a day and move on. I think there's a question here. Someone said any resource manager is easier to use or complex. I would say the resource manager template is easier to use because with the declarative tags and all, you can quickly within minutes deploy a VM. Unlike if you go through, Azure and the portal and try to do click, 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 and all. With the template, very easy to deploy. So yes, I would say I agree with you to say yes, it is easier to use. Someone said, can we say availability zones are like replicated data center within a particular region? Absolutely. You can liken it that way, for you to gain better understanding. Yes. Can liken availability zone to that. Is that replication of data center in another physical location within the same Azure region. Yes. Okay. Joseph, I see your hands up. Please, let's take Joseph and we can round it off and call it a day. I really would not like to take much of our time. Joseph, please go ahead quickly. I see your hand up. That's why I'm calling you. Please go ahead. If you're speaking, your mic is muted. Okay, so I'm unable to hear Joseph. I'll just take one more person, and that's Chin. I'm not sure if I can pronounce your name very well. I think Chin Antonio or something.
All right, good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Please go on.
Okay, in the beginning of the class, you said you would give us a task at the end. So I just want to remind you in
All
case
right.
you have any tasks for us.
Yes, I do. And this is something I'll drop a Microsoft form and I will expect us to go take. It's like a class exercise, for our module 1. So I would expect everyone to participate. It's just for you to be able to assess yourself personally. Okay, we are not marking it to say, okay, you did poorly or you did badly. No, it's for you to say, okay, so far so good. I've not wasted 2 hours. I understand what Tosin is saying and I'm able to apply it by answering this question. Now, if you do not do well, that tells you again to say, okay, I think I'm missing out something. I'm not able to get some things. And we can continue the learning on the platform where you can ask questions. People would be available to answer. I will be available to answer. So that's what I mean. I'll drop, it's a Microsoft form. Just go ahead, to participate in that learning. It's basically for us.
All
So
right.
All right, please. So, like I promised, I said I was going to drop a link in form of, that um documentation for our note based on these things that we've learned so far. So you have that link already. And thank you all for your time, for this learning. We have come to the end of this session. So let's prepare our mind. Next week, we should be doing, a deployment of the environment where, we can have hands-on experience. So thank you all for your time. Apologies for taking 4 minutes extra. I am really sorry for that. It's not going to happen again. I will ensure we finish right on the dots rather than begging for extra time. So thank you all. Thank you everyone. The learning continues on the channel. Let's drop our questions. Let's drop our contribution and let's make learning fun. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye all.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you and